And we are live. Guys, I couldn't be more excited about this. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Bassin Magazine podcast. Bassin Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. Guys, I had this young man on a couple weeks ago, and he did a great job. He had a lot of people watching him. He had a lot of people watch him afterwards. Then this high school student goes and fishes his first ever Bassmaster Open. Wow. And he showed everybody what's up. Hunter, I'm sorry, I should have introduced him. I have none other than Hunter Hamilton from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. How are you doing tonight, Hunter?
I'm doing pretty great. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. You know, Hunter, tell everybody, what place did you end up as a co-angler?
So I finished 14th in the Bassmaster Open on Red River this past weekend.
So the 2022 Bassmaster Open, Red River. Wow. 14th. And how many co-anglers did they have?
There was a ton. I think it was like right around 200 to 210 co-anglers. It was a whole bunch of them.
So they had 200, 210 boats somewhere around in there. And every one of those guys had delusions. I'm not going to say delusions. That sounds way too hostile. Had ambitions of taking home a trophy. Of course, you don't go there thinking, I'm just going to go see what happens. No, you go there with the intent of winning it. And like I tell a lot of people, only one guy wins. Every one of the rest of them come in somewhere underneath him.
Yeah.
But 14th, and how many Bassmaster Opens have you fished?
This is my first one.
And your first major, right?
Yes, sir.
Like you've never fished any Toyotas or?
No, sir. I've never fished any of them. This was my first opportunity.
Wow. Let me tell you, I certainly didn't end up 14th in my first. I've never even fished an Open. I fished a whole bunch of BFLs, but
Yeah.
Jeez. I'm impressed. So tell us. So day one you go out and you stopped. What were you fishing?
So I drew Joey Nania as my day one boater. We ended up going out from the launch and stopped on a stretch of reeds and some grass out from the bank. And so the first thing I picked up was a Missile Baits D-bomb.
Okay.
That's a Missile Baits D-bomb. I like Superbug because I can throw it. It has black and blue on one side and it has green pumpkin on the other side.
You want to hold that a little bit closer to the
color to be able to work in all watercolors.
Hey Hunter, could you please hold that a little closer to the camera so we can see it?
Yes, sir.
There you go. I like that color. I like those ribs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so we ended up going out and we started flipping along that reed edge, and Joey was finding some brush with live scope on the front. And so I'm in the back of the boat, and so I'm just flipping along the reeds, and I saw a grass clump that was, I think it was like 2 foot by 2 foot out from the bank. It was probably like 5 foot out from the bank. And so Joey had passed it up, and so it was coming towards me, and so I flip right into it. I flip my D-bomb right on the edge. It goes right down, and I pick it back up, and I watch a bass swirl on it. So I paused, and I made sure he had it, and I set the hook, and that's how I caught my first fish. It was like 2 3/4. Man. It was a great start to the day on like my fourth cast.
That takes nerves of steel, man. To actually be able to feel a thump, and you're just sitting there. Okay, I'm gonna wait until this thing has it in its mouth. Well, I guess you can do that or miss your fifth. You have two choices.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be pretty tough, and so every bite I had to capitalize on it.
Absolutely.
If I would have messed up one, it probably was going to be the difference between me having a limit and me having 0 fish. So I went out with the intentions of doing my best that I could and just sticking to what I love. So it was great. And
So
after me and Joey went and fished that stretch, we went and fished some more reeds on the edge of the main river, and we started flipping down a good ways. Mr. Joey caught a keeper, and then he ended up, I think he caught another keeper on that stretch. And so we were high-fiving each other, fist pumping and stuff. It was a great morning. We actually had the Bassmaster camera guides ended up coming in and taking pictures of us. Joey actually caught those 2 fish right in front of him. So if you look on the Bassmaster website, I'm doing a little funny face pointing at him and everything where he's got a fish, and so it was a great start to the morning. We both had high hopes and everything after he had 2 of his keepers and I had 1 of mine, and so I just knew that we had to go down and grind, and I knew that we would be able to do pretty well.
Man, so you worked on another set of reeds. Is that what you targeted the entire first day?
Yes, sir. So we fished. So how we caught our fish there were reeds that were in deeper water. They were kind of creating a canopy. So whenever reeds fall over and stuff, they kind of mat on top of each other. And so as the sun got higher, those fish pushed up further and further into those reeds. And we had to put it in front of them. If you weren't putting it right in front of their face, they weren't going to eat it. And we ended up going into 1 oxbow and we didn't do anything. And there, Mr. Joey and I both were thinking to each other, like, man, I think we got to go back out to the main river. And so as soon as we did that, I wound up on that same stretch that he caught those 2 fish on in the morning. When we went back there, and I caught another solid keeper. I think it was like 2 1/4. And so I was sitting on 2 fish there. And Mr. Joey, I think he ended up catching another one off that stretch. And then we went a long time without a bite. I think we went 2 or 3 hours without a bite. We both were kind of puzzled, and we started fishing more reeds and everything. But the problem was that they were shallower. Those reeds that were in deeper water that you couldn't see the sandy bank or the clay bank under them, those are what were holding the fish. And so
did you have to punch in? Did you have to punch in through them? Or?
Yes, sir. So I used the missile baits D-bomb again. After I got done flipping one with a 1/4 ounce weight, I switched up to this is a 1.5 ounce Rougarou tungsten weight. Okay. And I have a great shank hook on it, and I was punching that into the reeds. Yes, sir.
Wow, punching in the reeds, jeez. I punched into a lot of water lilies. As you've done that 1,000 times in the spillway and in the Henderson. Punching in through water lilies or hyacinths, whatever you want to call them. Yeah. But reeds, man, those things are a lot stronger and they go all the way down to the bottom, not like water lilies.
Yeah. It was a very, very hot day. And so doing that and kind of staying just flipping the whole day, it was a little bit longer than you would expect to be fishing. Like, we weren't throwing chatterbaits or throwing frogs or something. That was super, super exciting to watch them just nail it or something like that. But it was an awesome day. We ended up after Joey got his 5th fish, we ended up going and scouting, and what we did scouting. So we ended up running new water. So we ran way down the river and started fishing more reeds. And sure enough, he called once or twice, and that's how we ended our day. I had 2 fish for 4.5 pounds. So, I mean, they were solid fish for Red River. It was just, I fished as clean as I could, and I couldn't get that 3rd bite.
It's the guys I have on who are, co-anglers, been doing it for 15, 20 years. They tell me that co-angling is just as much of an art as being the guy in the front of the boat. You have to know how to be in tune with your angler. You have to respect your angler. It's not an easy thing to do. And also you have to wait for your cast. You can't just be casting, you can't just be casting and there's an area that you can cast in, there's the no cast and the cast area, so you got to respect your boat. There's a lot to co-angling that if you've never experienced that, there's just no way you can know about it.
It's the only way to be able to really know about it is to just do it. So whenever you can go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. I was just agreeing with you. Okay.
So whenever I first get in the boat with the guy, this will be my 3rd or 4th time. Yeah, it's my 4th time. Was Red River being a co-angler. I fished some Bass Nation events in Louisiana and everything, nothing like an open. But the guys that I would get in the boat with, first thing I would do is I would introduce myself if I hadn't already talked on the phone with them, and I would just talk to them and get to know them a little bit. And whenever we pull up to the first spot, my first question would be, "Where can I cast?" I
Where
don't
may I
want
cast?
to
Yes.
pressure them as much as I don't want to like cast too far in front of the boat, but I also want them to kind of respect me enough to be able to give me a few casts that I can manage, no matter if they're 10 foot away from the bank or if we're out a little bit further from the bank. At Red River, Mr. Joey, I asked him, I was like, "Hey man, where can I cast?" And he was like, "As long as you don't go over my line, you're okay." And so I respected him in that, is that I would not cast in front of the boat. I tried to stay in my lane, which is behind the console, and that's what I did for the whole day.
That's what most guys say. Draw a line from console straight out. And that's back of that's your area, front of that's my area. That's
Yes,
what
sir.
most guys have told me. You know, I talk to a lot of co-anglers. You know, I like talking to people from Denny Brower all the way down to the guy who's aspiring to fish his first. To guides everybody, you know, and that's
Yeah,
one thing
definitely.
both the pros and the co-anglers tell me. You know, just respect the other guy in your boat.
Yes, sir.
It's all about
It always leads to a happier day on the water for sure.
absolutely, man. Yeah, and you know, yes, I fortunately never had any bad co-anglers, and also I never had any bad boaters. You know,
Yes, sir.
never. Just I always had good experiences, but also you know I get in the boat and do the same thing you do. I establish a rapport. Tell them, you know, I'm not here to upset you. I'm not here to screw you up. I'm just here to do what I'm doing. You know, I'm here
Yes,
to
sir. Exactly.
catch some damn fish. You know,
Yep, exactly.
so day 2. Did you fish day 2?
So, yes, sir, I did. So on day 2, I drew another guy. His name was Bart, and Mr. Bart was a great guy. He was actually ex-military, so I got to talk to him, and he was a great dude. He was just like Mr. Joey, that they respected me and knew that I wasn't going to be a jerk to them or anything like that. And so we ended up actually fishing backwaters on day 2. Mr. Bart was in an area where a lot of guys that were doing really well were in too. And so it took about 30 minutes to be able to idle, like from blast off to that area. About half of that was just idling. And once we finally got into that pond, I picked up a frog. It was actually this spro frog right here. Just a shad colored spro frog.
Okay.
And so I was throwing that on the edge of some scattered pads that we were around. Mr. Bart started flipping mats, just a whole bunch of hyacinth mats that had pushed up against the bank. And so I saw a whole bunch of scattered lily pads, and I was like, man, there's got to be some fish out there. This is early in the morning. Those fish, you got to think that they're probably roaming around on the edge of the flats and everything like that. Like, it was probably 4 foot deep in there at the deepest part that we were in. And so this fish had got to be roaming. There's a whole bunch of scattered grass everywhere. There was actually some hydrilla in there. So I started fan casting around that frog, and sure enough, I get a bite like 10 minutes into fishing. I catch a 2.5 pounder. And I boat flip him. I set him down there, and my angler kind of looks at me like, what the heck? And I was like, yes, sir. I got my first one, so I picked it up, unhooked it, and dropped it in the well and started fishing again. So he started doing the same thing as me. He picked up a frog, started rolling it out there, and didn't get any more bites doing that. So we kept on I was throwing a frog out in the lily pads, and he was still punching and everything. And sure enough, about 2 hours later, we were grinding in there, just going back and forth down these stretches. And sure enough, he catches a 3-pounder. And I'm like, dang, okay. So I started punching mats too. He ended up catching that fish, punching, I think it was a rage menace, I think it was an 1.25 ounces he was punching. And it just burst right through, and I was like, man, that's got to be a fish. I looked at that cast, and I was like, there's got to be a fish. It was on the tip of a mat, and just perfect situation. Sure enough, he caught it. And so I started punching mats too. We did that for a couple more hours. He had another 2.5 pounder he caught, and then it got very slow around lunchtime. I think around 11 o'clock, we both were kind of thinking, man, I think we need to go try something else. So I was like, hey, Mr. Barter, would you want to go try somewhere else? He was like, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. And so we got out of there and went to another oxbow that he had caught a few fish in practice. And some guys that were doing pretty well again were in there too. We started punching again. He ended up catching another one that was like a pound. And so he had 3 fish, and I was sitting on still my 1 fish that I caught at the beginning of the day. I was like, man, I got to switch something up. Punching just me for that day. I don't know what it was. It just didn't agree with me apparently. So I picked up a crankbait. It was a chartreuse and black 1.5. Sorry, they're all tangled up. But it was a chartreuse and black Strike King KVD 1.5, and I started fan casting around some standing timber in the middle of the oxbow, and sure enough, I catch another one that was like 1.5 pounds, and so I had 2 fish for that day too, and I didn't get any more bites or anything. I fished my heart out the whole day, and I just did all that I could, and so I showed back up to weigh in with 2 more fish. I think I weighed in 3 pounds 10 ounces. So it was a little bit of a downgrade from day 1, but still pretty good that I was able to bring 2 more fish to the scales that were decent.
And that was enough for 14th place.
Yes, sir. It was a very tough tournament. It was definitely a grinder for sure, but I had a blast. Both my anglers were great guys and everything. I had a great time being able to share just talking with them in the boat and also fishing against them. And I learned a ton from both of them.
I bet you did. So I've never been on the Red River. Can you tell me what kind of bottom? Is it a sandy bottom?
So we launched at a pool 5, which is in Shreveport. More specifically Bossier City, at Red River, South Marina. We ended up going there, and so it's a mixture of so back in 2016, then we had a big flood come through, and so all that water coming from up at the top of Red River too, with all the flooding up there and stuff, later ended up washing away. It just blew a whole bunch of silt down the river, and so all the grass died like everywhere. And so it was a whole bunch of there's still wing dams like there are in like pool 3 and stuff, but it's a lot of silt and sandy bottom. You'll come across like some big like cliff walls and everything that are just red dirt or clay, but mostly it's sandy bottom. And there's a mixture of reeds. There's actually some hydrilla now. There's a ton of lily pads in the backwaters, and a ton of hyacinth mats. So it's a great place for everybody that either wants to fish deep on wing dams, throwing like crankbaits and stuff, and for also the guys like me that love to throw a frog and flip in the backwaters.
Now, when you say deep, how deep of water are you talking about?
So those wing dams, they can either go from 6 foot, 5 foot to all of a sudden they drop off to like 30 foot. So sometimes those fish will be sitting off of the wing dams, like they'll be sitting further down them. And whenever they start pulling current, whenever the locks open up, like there's 3 series of locks that I know of. That whenever they open up, it starts pulling current. So those fish position, they pull right up on those wing dams, and they're so much fun to catch. You can catch them on a spook early in the morning sometimes. You can throw a crankbait, and you will definitely get bit. And then I throw a drop shot sometimes too.
I've fished a lot of wing dams on the Mississippi, but this is, way far up north, like in Wisconsin and Illinois. So do you fish above or below the wing dam?
So I like to fish. So the wing dams, when they come out of the water, they're about 6 foot tall or 5 foot tall. Whenever the water is as low as it is right now,
must be really low.
I prefer to fish. Yeah, it's very low. Red River was very low this time. A lot of people were getting stuck and kicking up mud and everything. You saw Keith Poche was in his 10 rig, so it was pretty low. But so I like to fish in that 3 to 5 foot range on them. I don't like to be right at the surface of them. Unless I see them blowing up on shad. Like sometimes I'll push the shad up to the edge of the wing dams to where all the shad have to do is just go up and they're an easy meal. I'll throw a spook down it or a buzzbait. but usually I'm throwing a crankbait, like a 1.5 or a Bandit or a Bill Lewis MR6 that dives down to that 3 to 5 foot range, that I'm just trying to bounce off as many rocks as possible and to be able to create that reaction strike.
Nice. Because, I mean, I fish both in front and back, and also the very tip. If the water was shallow like you're talking about, I'd be fishing the very tip of that too. Boy, I worked an entire. I worked on, if it was that low, I'd work the entire wing dam. That's the only rock. Well, let me ask you this: did you find any rock structure?
So I did not personally. It's pretty much around there. It's just dirt. It's dirt and vegetation. There's a lot of laydowns in the river, but not many like big boulders sitting anywhere or anything like that.
I'm just dreaming. I know there probably aren't any rocks this far south, but that was always my favorite thing. I spent my entire childhood walking up and down smallmouth bass streams, and just if I could catch one smallmouth in a day, I was happy.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. There's many smallmouth in this river. It's all catfish. And I'm not gonna go for stupid catfish.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it was, man. And we would fish rocks all day long. Yeah. So much fun.
Yeah, I love fishing rock. Rock is cool because I don't really get to do it a whole lot, and it gives me the confidence that I can pick up a crankbait, roll it down the bank. And usually rocks hold fish year round. It's a source of structure that this fish can cling to, that they can hide behind, and they're going to be safe from predators. And it holds a lot of bait fish because of all the algae and everything on it that the bait fish can feed on.
In a lot of those lakes, like if you get further up north, that's the only place you're going to find crawfish.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And all kinds of stuff around rocks, all kinds of stuff. So, confidence. Did you get to pre-fish for this tournament at all?
So I actually did. Hunter Sales reached out to me and asked if I wanted to come hop in the boat with him on practice day. He and my dad had been talking after the last podcast, and he invited me to go with him on that Wednesday before the tournament. And so I had a blast with him. I caught all the fish on a D-bomb, on a Ruger tackle tungsten, 1/4 ounce weight. I was flipping it into grass. I was flipping laydowns with it. He actually missed one on a frog that I followed him up behind him, and I caught one on that D-bomb too. It's my all-around go-to lure that I was able to get bites on, and to help him figure out a little something that he can go all up for the tournament.
That's very interesting, man, because Hunter Sales has been on my podcast probably 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
He probably told you that. Hunter Sales and I are
yes, sir, he did.
Hunter Sales is awesome, man. Every time I talk to him, I say, stack the deck, Hunter. Stack the deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He loves that.
Yeah, he's a great dude.
Oh, yeah. 9 opens. Plus, he's the coach of Carson Newman University. That's his full-time job. 9 opens.
He definitely has his hands full, that's for sure.
9 opens. Plus, he goes to tournaments. He said he goes to tournaments almost. He's going to put 30,000 miles on his truck this year.
Yeah. Yep, I can believe it. I mean, they're bouncing around everywhere too in those 9 opens. It's not like you go to places that are near each other. It's on this side of the country to this side of the country, up here, down there, type of thing. That it's crazy. It's a whole lot of driving.
Plus, Carson Newman is a powerhouse in as far as collegiate bass fishing.
Yes, sir.
And they just started a kayak fishing team too. So the dude doesn't sleep.
I had the pleasure of talking to him and asking him. I was like, "Hey, Hunter, do you do like a daily job?" He's like, "Nope, I just coach." So it's really cool to be able to see his passion for his team and stuff like that, for sure.
Oh man, I'm glad you told me that, because you never know who's watching these podcasts.
Yes, sir.
You never know who. Man, that's a thank you for telling me that. That makes me feel good. I like him a lot. So confidence. So you got to fish. Did you only pre-fish for one day?
Yes, sir. I only pre-fished for one day. I think we had to be off the water by 1 that day, so it was cut short, but it was a great morning on the water.
Hold on 1 second, please. Hunter, just go ahead and talk for a second. I got to deal with something at my house.
Okay. But yeah, so it was great being able to be with Hunter. I also fished the open and everything like that, and got to talk with all the guys and everything. I got to meet all the people that you see on TV that I couldn't dream of being able to meet. I saw guys from Louisiana, and I saw guys from all around. It was great.
Okay, I'm back. I do apologize about that, Hunter. Somebody's knocking on
it's all good.
Somebody's knocking on my front door.
It's all good.
Sorry about that. It never fails.
I know. It's like it's always whenever you're trying to like do something, and then like some guy comes up, or like the door open, and yeah.
Phone rings the whole time, doesn't ring the rest of the night.
Yep, exactly. Yes, sir.
So confidence. So you've never been on the Red River before, right?
So I've never fished personally in pool 5. I've been in pool 4 and pool 3, but pool 5 sets up a little bit different than both pool 4 and pool 3 do.
Okay, so you've never been on that body of water. Well, you've been on the body of water, but never in that area.
Yes, sir. Yes,
sir. So wow. So you had one day to fish it. And you went to the D-bomb.
Yes, sir.
As your first cast.
Yes, sir.
Tell me why that is.
So for the past couple of years, I've been throwing it more and more. I fell in love with it after I caught my first 4-pounder. I caught my first 4-pounder on it a couple of years ago. Just working, and it was just an old farm pond that I had the pleasure of fishing. And ever since then, I got hooked. I started experimenting with new colors and everything. I was gonna see if I had some more under here. This is a 30-pack of Superbug. I buy them by the bulk packs because I love them so much. It's so versatile that I can swim it. I can work it on the bottom. I can even throw it on a Carolina rig if I wanted to.
Yes.
It has endless options. Sometimes I throw it on the back of a buzz bait if I want something that's a little bit bigger profile. I'll use like a Bayou Special, which is like South African Special, just for like a black buzzbait or something like that.
Okay. See, that's what I like to key in on this podcast is confidence. So you had confidence with that because you have caught so many fish on it in the past. And,
yes, sir.
I've had so many pros that, tell me you're going to catch fish on what you have confidence in.
Yes,
you're going to fish it harder. You're
so
going to fish it better. You're going to refine your technique. You're going to be in tune with your fishing rod.
Yes, sir.
Just, you get in that zone. I'm sure you've been there. Nothing else exists except you and that lure.
Yes, sir. Exactly. And I've grown up flipping. I like shallow water. Deep water is growing on me for sure. I love to catch them on a ledge. I had the pleasure of doing that. I talked to y'all about that in the last podcast on Lake Guntersville and Lake Paula. There's nothing like feeling the tug tree or on a big clump of grass, and you just feel that's my favorite thing.
Yeah, feel the thump, thump, thump. They don't always thud. Sometimes they just thump, 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 and that's when, like you said, you're reeling down, getting every last fraction of an inch of bow out of that line.
Yes, sir. Exactly. You have to do it right then because they don't hold on to it super long unless it's a missile-based D-bomb. I found out that I can flip other baits and they'll pick it up for a second, and I mean, I'll still catch them and everything, but they literally will not let go of this. The scent that they put on them, it doesn't smell a whole lot, and just the ribbed action on the bait makes it look more lifelike than any other flipping bait that I've found.
So do you like to just Texas rig the D-bomb, or do you ever put a jig on it? Do you ever put it on
I've experimented with throwing a jig on it. I throw a half ounce with it on the back. Missile Baits makes an Ike mini flip. I throw a mini D-bomb on it, like a little D-bomb. But usually I Texas rig it. I prefer to throw a Texas rig over a jig. Personally, I get less hung with it.
Okay.
And I'm more efficient with it too.
Okay, I get that. I'm more of a jig man myself. Just, I don't know why, but I'll cut those strands off just so that it's just so. I'll cut the hook guard or the weed guard off. I don't cut it off, but I cut it down so that the fish can get his mouth around that and doesn't have to go through the weed guard.
Yes, sir.
One thing that was really interesting, back in the 90s, I was fishing with a pro up in Illinois, and he showed me. I said, you got a 1 ounce hunk of lead on that jig. And he's like, watch this. We were fishing bedding bass, and he casted it out, and that bass picked that thing up and swam, 10 yards over that way. He said, I'm just going to let him take a walk. And, he was kind of holding it, and the thing spit it out when it got, over that way. So now it's clear of its bed. And I'm sitting there. That's a 1 ounce hunk of lead, man.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. They will pick up a 1 ounce jig. Okay, I believe you. I sat there. This was crystal clear water, so we could see it.
Mm-hmm.
And we were probably 20 yards away from it. So, but still, it was just so clear.
So I find that if you flip heavier jigs and heavier weights in general, you get a lot more bites in the summertime just because it's more of a reaction to it. Fish, and then in the springtime also, if they're being really finicky with a lightweight, like I like to flip a quarter or 3/16 ounce weight in the springtime on my D-bomb, but I will go occasionally up to a half ounce or even a 3/4. If they're seeing it go down and they're watching it, but they're not really doing anything, first I'll try to thump them with it, but if that doesn't work, I'll throw a huge weight on it, like sometimes even, like I said, a 3/4 ounce weight. I'll throw on it and it'll zip past them and they'll just grab it out of reaction.
I have heard that. I've always been a super finesse fisherman myself. Yeah. In fact, it used to make people mad when I was a boater. I'm so slow, and these guys are power fishermen. Come on, man! Come on, let's get going. I just didn't even. That only happened once, but I didn't even react to it. I just looked at him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But but I'm starting to believe that, particularly in crystal clear water. Don't give them a chance to see it. Just rip that past them. Of course, now maybe it's just I'm more in tune with what's going on. But back then, when I was mostly guiding and writing, I did my own thing, and that was all finesse. And
yes, sir.
And now I'm learning most tournament fishermen are power fishermen.
Yeah. But that's also good that you're more finesse, is that you can work behind them. If somebody goes down a bank throwing a crankbait, they're going to leave fish behind them because they're making 45-degree casts and everything, and so they're missing a lot of water. That then you can go in behind them throwing a go or throwing a shaky head and be able to pick up those fish that may not want to dart out and eat a crankbait.
Good point. My favorite way to fish is the weedless wacky rig, and my favorite wacky rig is the missile 48.
Yes, sir. That's a great
Bruiser Flash.
I throw it a ton.
Bruiser Flash.
Yeah. Bruiser Flash is a good color for sure. I like Junebug and Watermelon Red. Watermelon Red whenever it's super clean water, and Junebug whenever it's stained.
how do I say this? Man, just I've caught fish using June bug and from super clear to super dirty water. And
Sometimes
also,
it's something that they don't see a whole lot, and so for sure they'll definitely wreck it in super clean water. I've seen that personally. I'm throwing like for instance, one time me and my friend were fishing Carolina rigs, and it was clean water. My friend had a June bug colored fluke on there, and I was throwing a green pumpkin colored fluke because I'm thinking, man, it's clean water. And so sure enough, he ends up catching a 4-pounder, and I'm like, what the heck? And I didn't get any more bites or anything on it either. So it just sometimes it does outperform green pumpkin or watermelon red.
okay, let's talk a little bit local.
Okay.
From the Henderson all the way down,
Yes,
the
sir.
entire spillway. What is your confidence lure with that body of water?
I'd have to say missile-based D-bomb. That or crawfather. I'll flip a sapphire blue crawfather, and then I'll flip a superbug colored D-bomb. I will throw a frog occasionally. If there's a couple of areas that I know that there's some clumped up hydrilla that I like to work it over, and just working on the edge of the hyacinth mats. But usually I flip a missile-based D-bomb.
One of the things I'm really starting to like is big ribbon tail worms.
Yes, sir. Yeah, definitely. I love throwing them too.
Like in the Henderson, there's a lot of those really long points that go down into the deepest water you're going to find in the area.
Yes, sir. Definitely. I actually
Just
I
Carolina
have
like that.
I have some right
Like,
here. So I like to
Cajun
throw
lures.
the Cajun lure big O worm.
Yeah, that's what I was just talking about. Cajun lure, big old worm.
Yes, sir.
It's
It's a great bait.
It's like a 10-inch long ribbon tail.
Yes, sir.
That's a lot of fun. Or like I said, this one's beat up, but just a shaky head, spade tail.
Yes, sir.
It's one of my favorite colors too, and every cypress knee I see, particularly if it's you find like 3 cypress trees all get together and you got some moving water. If you can find that in a drain that the water's moving, in the Henderson in the spillway, you're gonna find fish.
Yes, sir. The missile-based quiver is a great bait. I like to throw June bug again or watermelon candy. Watermelon candy just has a little bit more flake to it, and so those fish that are in that more stained water, I feel like they react to it better.
Yeah, a lot of my friends like to work that. Like I had the pleasure of fishing with Lucas Ragusa, he's from Gonzales.
Yes, sir. I know who he is.
Yeah, he has a bullet, just
Mm-hmm.
hot boat,
Yeah.
right up there with Phoenix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he used the Bayou Bug 2.0 from Cajun Lures.
Yes, sir.
And he was flipping that and working it super fast and bouncing it off of every tree. He outfished me 6-1.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he was like a sieve going
down
through
there.
the water.
It's about a mini cast you can make. You can go through working it super slow and stuff, and you can definitely catch tons of fish. I personally like to power fish a bait, so I'll power flip and everything like that. Like you're talking about, Mr. Lucas, he can go down the bank super fast too, and just hit every piece of cover.
He does. And also I've never seen anybody that can cast a lipless crankbait as far as he could. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like, the only place I felt safe was hiding underneath the console.
Yeah. I hear you.
That broadcast. Whoosh! Never. Jeez. Wow.
Yeah.
I was casting half that. Jeez.
Yeah. For sure.
My goodness. Well, hey, Hunter, do you have any shout outs you'd like to do? Any thank yous to any organizations, companies, individuals who've helped you along the way?
Yes, sir. I want to thank Mr. Jeff Taylor, Whitetail Properties again. He's done a lot for me and my family, and helping me further along my passion in this whole fishing thing. I'd like to thank Mr. John Cruz and Mr. Alex with Missile Baits. I'd like to thank Mr. Justin and Mr. Adam with Rougarou, and also Serpro South Baton Rouge. They've been great to me the past couple of years. They actually help out with my high school team too, and so it's great for them to be able to support. It's great for them to be able to support people like us. And also with the storm coming up, they're actually gearing up to go to Florida to go do a whole lot of flood relief stuff. So hopefully, just pray for safety for all of them and to be able to come back to their family safe and sound.
I bet they are, and I'd like to say that in closing that, just guys, pray for the hurricane victims. That was a Cat 4 that came through our area last year, and it especially hit Denham Springs and Watson hard. I don't think we had any power poles left,
No, sir.
And, I'm 90 miles inland.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys who are right on, good Lord, please help them.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
That's all I got to say. Please, guys, pray for the hurricane victims. I'm going to be there next week, doing my job, and I'm sure we're going to be helping out wherever we can too. But
yes, sir.
Guys, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in and watching the Bassin Magazine podcast. Bassin Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. I'd like to thank Brad Yoel for giving me this opportunity to be the host of the Bassin Magazine podcast. And of course, Hunter, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to come and talk to our viewers right here on the Bassin Magazine podcast.
Yes, sir. Thank you again for having me.
And with that, everybody, man, you know what? Go out and go fishing this weekend, because you only get to do this once. And stick around after the podcast, Hunter.
Yes, sir.